Hello, class, and welcome back to EPSY 255. Can you believe that we are in week 13? It is very wild to me that I only have a few more weeks with you all. I've been so enjoying reading what you have been writing in your discussions and in your assignments. And so I'm just looking forward to continuing to get to know you all through your writing as we wrap up this semester. In this week, this is week 13, we are going to discuss chapter 15, which talks about peers. And some of the things that we're going to discuss today are what is a peer and what's their function? Why do we have peers? Do we believe that peers are necessary for development? We're even going to talk about some of the theories about peer relations and the types of peers that children may have. So we're going to start off with, as always, the definition of whatever topic that we talk about. So today we're going to kick off this discussion with talking about what is a peer. A peer is someone that is either the same age or around the same age or maturity as a child. There are different types of peers. You can have an acquaintance. You may call an acquaintance someone that you work with, but you don't know very well. You can also have crowds, which are larger groups of peers. You can have a clique, which has about 2 to 12 people, but usually the average clique is about 5 to 6 people. Peers can also be your friend, or they can be your romantic partner. And so we know now what a peer is. And now the question is, where do you find peers? Peers you can find anywhere. At school, at sporting events, you may play on the same team. You may even have grown up on the same block as them in the same neighborhood. So you can essentially find a peer wherever you go in the world, whether that's school, at the park, at museums. You can find peers everywhere. So now the question is, why do we have peers? What is the importance of peers? Peers serve as a source of information, and peers also allow children to compare themselves and compare themselves to and find out more information about the world around them. Peers also provide children with feedback about their abilities. They may say, hey, you're a good friend, or you're a bad friend. They may also encourage children to go out for a sporting team, for example, or encourage children to really hone in on their abilities. The child may be a really good drawer, and so their peer may encourage them to enter a drawing contest, for example. Peers also help children evaluate what they do. A lot of times when you have friends, especially if you have close friends, you may ask them, how does this outfit look? Should I change? Do you think I should keep this on? So peers help children to evaluate what they do and even what they wear. Peers also provide children with better abilities to be able to control themselves. And they also help influence children's socio-emotional competency. As you all know, a lot of times we've talked about emotional and social development. Good peer relations, it seems researchers believe that good peer relations may be actually necessary for social development. And I've talked about this in previous lectures, but children that often isolate, or they're not able to have a lot of good peer relations. A lot of times that is linked with different problems or disorders such as delinquency or problems with drinking and depression. So having peers is important to the development of children. Peer relations change as children develop. And so now we're going to start off with talking about peer relations in early childhood. Around the age of 3, boys usually like to play with boys, and girls usually like to play with girls. Not only do children usually spend a lot of time with same sex playmates, they also vary on the activity based on the gender that they believe that they are. So you may have more girls spending time with other girls, and they may spend time playing dress up or playing as princesses. But on the other hand, you may have boys who are hanging around with boys around this age, and they are playing sports. They may do even some big body play where they're able to wrestle each other. So that's more of a gender type activities. During this age, by around the age of 3, children are actually even able to tell someone if they are their friend or if they are not their friend. They're able to differentiate who is their friend and who is not. What's interesting about preschoolers in comparison to middle childhood, which we'll talk about next, is that preschoolers are actually, even though they prefer to spend time with same-sex playmates, preschoolers are actually more likely to have friends who are of different gender and different ethnicities. And we'll see how that is different when we get to talk about peer relations in middle childhood in the next slide. Of course, around the age of 3, during early childhood, interactions increase. Parents are not spending as much time with their child as they were when they were just born, because children are now able to be a little bit more independent. They'll be able to go to school or participate in different activities, and that's where their interactions were increased, and they'll be able to not only understand but negotiate different roles and rules when they play. They can argue and they can even agree when they are playing with their friends. So peer relations is very important in early childhood because it teaches the children, how to wait, how to agree, how to disagree, but still be able to manage their emotions. So peer relations is very important in early childhood. Next up, we're going to talk about middle childhood peer relations and how that differs from peer relations in early childhood. When we're talking about peer relations in middle childhood, usually friendships are based on what you can do for that person and what they can do for you. So it's a reciprocity. Or my friend might be really smart at something, or this person may give good advice and I'm here to listen, but I may help them with their homework. So there's this kind of reciprocity. The size of the group of peers increases, and peer relations still differ by gender. Usually, boys tend to be associated in large clusters compared to girls. Different types of interactions occur in middle childhood. Some children may have interactions that are more competitive. Some children may have more interactions that are more cooperative, like playing on teams, and competitive when they're playing on teams as well. They may have interactions where it's more quiet, so they may like to play the quiet game, for example. Or you may have interactions that are more boisterous, where they're outside and they're yelling while they're playing tag. So the interaction between peers differs. Girls are more likely to engage in collaborative discourse. So they're more likely to be able to speak to each other and find ways that they are alike and be able to collaborate on different activities that they may engage in. Boys, on the other hand, are more likely to be involved in rough and tumble play. I talked about a little earlier how boys tend to like to do the big body play in preschool, and that still is occurring in middle childhood, like wrestling. They're really into that. Boys are also more likely to be engaged in interactions that include risk taking. So as you can see, there is some difference in peer relations in middle childhood, but the whole point of this is to say that as children develop, their peer relations also change. Parents actually have a huge influence on peer relationships. Parents can influence their child's peer relationships in many ways, and the influence may be direct or it may be indirect, or it can be both. It can be direct and indirect. So, for example, we think about the lifestyle decisions that children or that parents make for their children. So, for example, the choice of neighborhoods that they live in or the schools that they send the children to. And even the parents have their own, social network. And so they're surrounded by their friends that may also have children. All of these lifestyle decisions can influence peer relations in regards to who children are friends, who are surrounded by, and eventually become friends with, are often based on decisions that parents make. Okay, that is all for this section. In the next section, we are going to talk about social cognition and emotion and how that plays a role with peers. Okay, I'm going to see you all on the next video.